Oh, Chile, Jordan, yeah, we. Chile, Jordan, I want to cross over, see my Lord. Well, we there in the Gullah Geechee Nation. They're in the Atlantic Ocean. So people are studying about this shit, and the water flow. That thing come to be plenty of different ways. We saw it then. When we did it, round the table like this shit, where we done put the shrimp on there, we done had everything like that. Study that water, that creek that we just come from. Plenty of time, early in the day, late in the evening, it's your time right here, because it's hot, the other time. We go on, that shoreline, look out across there. We study about that. The red horse, if you go into the ocean, look across there. Look at seven houses of fire, look back to shore. And we all study about the same thing. How the shore water, the kind of, and what can go on down, eat it. So we hear about this shit thing, but they were crossing over there, you know? Let's take it say, Chile, Jordan, walk across over. But who are they going over with? You see? Because one thing about crossing over the water, well, we know it's any. Plenty bridges didn't come in where we've been at. And when the bridge coming in, it's bringing things in before us walk. Things in before us over. And then the bridge, there's plenty of what we just say, good for the shoreline now. Because then we know back again. But when I don't know better, we're not supposed to do that. So plenty of time when people are coming over there, then things that we crack, we don't know nothing, but then yet we don't crack the teeth. So that's why many of us who are Gullah Geechee started mastering American English. So that people would not come to where we are and then think that we don't know what they're talking about. Most of the time, they don't know what we're talking about, okay? Especially about how to live in balance. When you literally live in the Atlantic Ocean, when you live right there along estuaries and shorelines, where you walk to one side of town, so to speak, and you're looking at the marsh, and you go to the other side, and you at the beach, okay? This is the realm in which we live. So it's been very intriguing to us as Gullah Geechees, especially to me, who is a computer scientist and mathematician that does a considerable amount of marine science work over the years. How people talk about the environment, but they don't talk to us who are part of that environment. And so an interesting word that has been in my spirit the whole time I've been thinking about this symposium is the word sink. Because more often than not, when I'm in international discussions about the same topic that this symposium is about, we're talking about carbon sinks. And we're talking about not building certain places into the marsh and on the ocean because the islands are what? Sinking. So I said, well, it's interesting to me that that word sink comes up so often, but it's not sinking into the heads of the people who are having these events that they ought to come and talk to the people who somehow manage to live safely in the Atlantic Ocean, along the intercoastal waterway for hundreds of years. And we only started experiencing a lot of the erosion when the bridges came and other folks came from elsewhere that were not indigenous to those islands and not indigenous to that coast. Because those of us who lived in the coast knew where to build, when to build, how to build, and ways that are resilient, are sustainable to not just that real estate, but to the real coast, where we see that tide go up and come down, go up and come down every day. And where I say to people now, I say, well, cotton used to be king, now it's the tide. Ain't that stuff? I said, well, I'm going to still try to be the queen as long as I possibly can. I'm going to try to switch that up too. All right. So it's interesting that in these discussions, that again, I don't see it sinking into folks, that coming to us might be beneficial. Because what we, as we just got through hearing in the previous sessions, what we value is different, depending on the person and depending on the cultural community that that person came up in. So for us, money is not the leading force for the average Gullah Geechee. We need money because we have to deal with Westerners who everything's about money. But they always called us land rich and cash poor. And that's poor. We've heard it over and over. But as you just heard, there's a value in what we know. So it's intriguing to us that people ask us to come to focus groups about environmental sustainability, about environmental resilience, and have no cash to pay us. But the consultant in front of the room is getting paid. The academician in that room is getting paid. The government employee in that room is getting paid. Everybody's getting paid except the natives. So it starts to sink into the natives that, well, then maybe we don't need to go to these meetings. We just have some meetings of our own. And start to figure out, what is it that the world is focused on now? And we know that the world is focused on how to survive. How will we live in this world where the climate has changed? But are we talking about the scientific term climate change? Because we're talking about politically, for us, the climate hasn't changed. We've seen the same patterns over and over that our elders saw and our ancestors saw. Other people talking about our communities without talking to us about those communities. So when we start talking about law, law has been used as a tool to disenfranchise many people of color, indigenous people, black people, Latin people around the world. So again, our thing is, well, we need to be framing the law, especially the laws going forward. It sounds really cute, prior and informed consent, community engagement. What's the other ones? Community capacity building. All these latest buzz phrases sound wonderful. Collaborative partnerships. Yes. Community informed and engaged relationships. Oh boy, community participatory research. They all sound great. But again, what I think we all can bear witness to, we've seen every one of those things come into our community and someone swept in and swept out like the tide. Extraction and exploitation. There we go. Extraction and exploitation are all equal. So if we're again talking about now, oh, maybe we shouldn't extract. We should react. We should restore. Then we restore these places, then we see gentrification. Because now you have the greenwashing that comes in. Oh, we should green this area, so you know what we should do? Let me pay you to transfer your development rights to me. Or let me buy you out, because you know your area keeps flooding. So let me buy you out, and then we're going to green this area. And then once it becomes green space, somebody else comes in with the idea that this is a place with a high quality living environment. So why can't we build houses on the edge of that green space? So it's another form of displacement.
The value changes.
There we go, say that louder.
The value changes.
The value
improvements happen.
Right. But now while we were there, somehow nobody had money to improve nothing. It was all conversations that needed to be held. Well, we're past the point of talking now. I'm a mathematician and computer scientist, so numbers I love. So we need to talk dollars and cents. I can do that. I'm a business owner. And that's what I come to the table saying. Why don't we now talk about how we are part of this economy? And how are we going to ensure that our contracts of this new green or blue economy involves Native people? And in particular, my mama said charity begins at home and then goes abroad. So starting with the Gullah Geechee Nation. How do we ensure that where the major carbon sinks are remain a place where our cultural heritage is sunk into this soil so deep it can never be extracted? It's been exploited, but we will never allow it to be fully extracted. So how do we now get the benefits? How do we co-produce things that make sure that our children's children's children will be there benefiting from a healthy environment and a place where the cultural heritage is
tied to it because we're place-based people. We're not interested in discussions of exchanging our rights of any kind with somebody else for them to come in and do something. If anything, finance us, resource our communities so that we can be those folks that have that, I love the term, restoration economy, going where we are. So let's turn the blue carbon green for us. Through the marsh restoration, like I mentioned last night, the South Atlantic Salt Marsh Initiative, through initiatives like our Gullah Geechee Seafood Trail, because they don't need it. Let's talk about seafood if we ain't got no marsh. Or the water quality is not there. I mean, this would
No
be,
incubator.
thank you, there's no incubator for the seafood if we don't have that. So it all goes together for us. It's not like how these things look on the table, like they're separate entities. No, look at this table as an entire ecosystem. And now, what do all of these pieces bring to that ecosystem to make sure they'll continue to exist? And that we can be economically viable and culturally alive. Because it's about cultural continuation for me, not preservation. Preservation, we put it in a jar, lock the top on it, lock the air out, put it on the shelf, and then when you're ready to expel it, you come, twist that top off, you can throw it out, you can eat it, you can do whatever, but it's gone. And that jar is not empty. Anybody can put anything else in there now, but they can't replace what was there originally. It'll never be the same. So our thing is, we already have a place in the space that is critical to this discussion about blue carbon. But why should we have to come away from the coast to have these discussions? Every time I'm flown somewhere, I gotta drive somewhere, I gotta fly somewhere to have these discussions instead of them happening right on the shore. We would take y'all out. I got muck boots. I don't just wear these high heel shoes and stuff. I got muck boots. I put on some waders. We could be standing in the marsh talking about the importance of this and let it really sink in. So we wanted to open up an opportunity to really talk to you all about what happens when you actually have the community members lead the discussion versus everybody else do the scientific work and the economic work and do all of that and then come in and talk to us after the fact. We need to co-produce your science. Your theories would be better off. You wouldn't spend as much time and money and effort, believe me, if you spoke to the people first. I was very struck by one of the slides because community was the last thing on it. And I said to her, I said, oh, I got to consider the source. Look at who's presenting and look at me. I said, because there's no way community would have been at the end. Science was first, then you were talking about the money, and then way down on the end of the community. I said, no, if you actually put the community in the front, you would realize it would be more efficient. You would spend less money trying to get to the answers in your science. And those community members are the ones who would push the one that was near, even before them, the government, to do what is necessary to be done. I won't say right. So, I think our definitions of what's right and wrong are varied. So I won't say that. But what's necessary to get back to what we're all thinking about in the world, how we're going to survive. And how the next generation will, and the generation after that, and the generation after that. Now I know somebody's thinking it right now because I'm thinking that. Not everybody thinking about that Queen Quet, because some people are selfish, they couldn't care less about none of us. You know, they'll die and just want to be buried with money. You're right. But with that being said, let's sit them to the side. I think there's more of us that's more concerned about how we will survive and the next generation will than there are now. That's just been my position as I go to international meetings all over the place all the time. I don't see as many of them there as there are of us. So even if it's for selfish reasons, that you just want to live and breathe good air, and you love seafood, that's fine. If that's your motivation for being involved, I'm happy, but you're involved. If your motivation is you're that person, you're that egghead, like I call us, the scientist, and just love the science of it. I just want to see what comes out of this, what this blue carbon thing can do. And we need to calculate this. If that's your jam, let's jam, baby. I have no problem with that either. But let's not leave out the very knowledge that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years that could benefit us all, that come from those of us who, our parents, our grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and that lived in this environment and somehow sustained it in spite of being in hurricane zone. If you've lived through hurricanes like I have, and stayed on the sea island, sea level rise don't scare you one bit. But when you have sat through a hurricane, that sits in your soul, it sinks in the value of life, the value of everything around you, because that marsh that you saw before the storm might have been dredged out by the rush of the water when you go back after the storm. That tree that you used to love to sit under may not be standing anymore, much less the family members that might perish because they can't afford to leave a place. Or if we leave, we're saying, I die of heartache if I leave because the 50 other, 100 other cousins that live right around me, I'll be by myself. So why would I leave? I'm going to stay. They stay and I'm going to stay. And we either going to all make it or we all going to go home to glory. So again, what is it that you value? So when your blood, sweat, and tears is in soil, in pluck mud, in the very things that go up into those grasses that grow that we're saying are our carbon sinks, you add some different value to it than other people who are just doing the science or just doing the economic outlook. So we were happy to have this opportunity to say, well, good, they would have gotten through all the workshops and all that good stuff. Now we can just talk. And we love the fact of bringing you into the sun, because that's how we like to have that dynamic, be together in the sun. So from Florida to the Carolinas, you got us right here. So that we can really share on that. And Representative Simmons-Jenkins, I want to start off with you just being able to share some things, just because I know that you and I have talked a lot now about how the low country was supposed to be up in the Carolinas, and now people are marketing low country of Florida. And while they do that and put names out there like as if it's wild, it's actually filling in the marsh. And they're filling in areas, they're putting detention and retention ponds right where there's, you're already on the island. God already had what needed to be retained where it was if you didn't shift some things around, right? So I'd love for you to share on really this whole dynamic of blue carbon and the marsh and what it means to our family in Florida, seeing this coastal change.
Well, there was a time when Florida was a place that everyone went to because of its environment, the natural aspects of Florida. And now when people think of Florida, they immediately think tourism and, amusement parks. But there is a cost, we're hearing that word a lot, to having that economy. And very often that economy comes at the loss of the environmental economy. Now, because we're losing the environmental economy in Florida, you are hearing people speak more about ecotourism and things of that nature, and how that can draw people to Florida for a different reason. The environmental community is trying to compete with the other aspects that are causing Florida to now be depleted environmentally. So you probably know that Florida is a place where people come to retire. And very often, if you can come to Florida to retire, that means you have the means to come to Florida to retire. And if you're coming to Florida to retire because you have the means, you are more than likely living in a gated community. And if you're living in a gated community, then you're likely living on the water.
Yep.
Yep. I live on land that's been in my family for roughly 4 generations. We live on the marsh. But way down the road past us is an entire gated community of mansions and things of that nature, with the docks and what have you that go out. So there are these competing interests. So So when the environmental community says, you know, that they want to save the environment for the future, I immediately say, save us. We're the ones who are actively engaged in saving the environment, because nobody's going to be tearing down trees where I live. We love the trees. I talk to the trees. It's shade. It's a place for communing, for family, for fellowship. Not to mention, the land is for growing things.
Right.
I did not hear or see this for myself, but I'm told that my grandfather, when he would plant his crops, he would plant sometimes at the marsh, because it was, I didn't know at the time, but it was a form of irrigation, you know, for some of. So this idea of indigenous cultures being innovative in an environment where other people are kind of just, you know, they're not thinking creatively.
Right.
You will lose all of that if you lose us.
Right.
So when we were listening to the conversation before, I was telling Queen, I said, some of what's being discussed, my daughter will have to deal with, God willing. Because I don't anticipate being here when some of these things will become major issues. You know,
Standard
just
practice.
right. They're just coming to the forefront now. But she is going to need to know a lot about this blue carbon exchange and points and you know, all of these things that you all are talking about. The only thing that could come to my mind was Bitcoin.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so how do you translate in a way that indigenous peoples who don't use that kind of framework necessarily for exchange understand, okay, there's something on my land that has an environmental value, but it also has a cultural value. And then so how do you measure that? But those are things that we are right now hearing about. But by the time she steps into a position where she'll be navigating this area for her community and for the people in general, then it'll be a major thing. And she must know how to navigate it. So the long and short of it is that Florida is a community, a state of various demographics and economies, but our economy, the coastal economy, the non-market economy,
Yeah, we go with that again.
is one that is often not known or remembered and forgotten.
Yes, very, very good. Now, we don't want to take up too much of your time. We know that y'all were here earlier, and you know Ms. Marilyn Hemingway of our Gullah Geechee Chamber Foundation and Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, and that she moderated the session earlier. So that's why I ain't telling her to just go and talk again, but to be able to open it up now so you can dialogue with all of us about, one, why did you choose this session? You could have gone to something else. But then, so I know there must be some things ruminating in your mind. Anybody want to be the first?
I can.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your remarks. I often, with Sea Grant, we're responsible for being good stewards of public funds that we disseminate through our grants and fellowships and things like that. I often get researchers ask me, how do we build trust and work with communities? Tell me what to tell them. And how much, and if you could also shed some light on the time that it takes to build those meaningful relationships.
Oh, yes. See,
so share some strategies.
I know you're going to answer that one too. Yes. We're all going to answer this one. I had to stand up on this one because we get this question all the time. Sure. The first thing is, this is what I call the microwave generation, right? Everybody wants it, and she's laughing. Instant gratification, right now. Come on. What do you mean the video is longer than 3 minutes? That's too long. All this nonsense. So you have a generation of people who are thinking that is how you extract information. It should be that quick. I should pretty much be able to Google who you are, and that's our relationship. No. No, you don't build a relationship that way. And so I've said to people, this is not speed dating. Okay? So if you just come there, oh ding, the bell rings, oh I talked to you for 60 seconds, boom, the bell rings. Do you think I'm going to marry that person I spoke to for 60 seconds? I mean, I don't think that would be wise. Sometimes you talk to them for 60 years and it wasn't a wise decision. So you definitely don't want to do 60 seconds. So it's the same thing with the community. If you wouldn't want to go right ahead, and I know people date online now, maybe in 60 seconds date is, well, I'm in love until the teeth come out. You know, but that is not going to be the case. That's not the standard bearer around the world for a relationship. That takes time, that takes energy, that takes input. So what is it that you are literally bringing to the table? That's the first thing. And then if I'm the person with the table when you got there, I have a right to say I want this on or not on my table. Now, you coming in getting hostile because you feel that what you brought to the table everybody should love, that's your culture. That may not be my culture. I may want that thrown in the garbage. I don't want it on my table. And you need to be able to respect that. That when you come into a community, you are not their savior. That is a lot of what academics have been taught. You're coming to save the community, especially if the academics are Anglo-Saxon and the community is not. There is this thing of feeling like, I'm coming to you because you need me. We didn't send for you. What I need, I send for, I go get. I didn't send for you. So that attitude has to stop. So if you come in already with that attitude, that baggage, that opinion, you're not going to be able to build relationships because you're shutting the door before it gets open to you. And it is better if a community liaison opens the door, talks to you sometime in the yard first before they bring you on the porch. Then they bring you on the porch, don't sit down until they tell you you can sit down on their porch. Okay, there's different protocols in every community. They used to say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, well in the Gullah Geechee nation, do what the Gullah Geechees do. And let someone show you. If you don't know, it's no problem. They say, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Let someone who's a native there bring you into the community and introduce you to that community. And then, let's see what the longevity is. Are we co-producing what your questions that you want to ask my community are? Because if not, you may offend the wrong person. And now you may literally get run out. Okay? Because we know each other. You the one don't know us. And we know how to contact each other and say, this person named this is running around here from UGA and you don't need to be talking to them. And so a whole bunch of people are not going to talk to you. And some of them are going to talk to you to lie to you so that they can just tell you stuff. And then when your thesis comes out, you're a joke to us. That has happened many times. Okay? So you have to be willing to slow down. Sometimes stand till they tell you can sit. Then when they tell you, oh, it's all right, you can sit with us, sit, but then don't overstay your welcome either. Don't be a spy. Like, you know, every event we have and you're there. And people are like, well, why did you tell this person? Because now we already know you're studying us. So it's uncomfortable for the community. There are some things that maybe you're not invited to, and it's okay. It's not that we hate you. We just want to be comfortable. There's certain things you discuss in your house when it's just you and your children. You ain't going to discuss that when some neighbors come over. And you don't want your children discussing it with the neighbors' children either, right? It's that simple. And so all of these things are aspects of building relationships. So the person would just look at it on a one-on-one and expand on that. On if it were you, what would you want? Trust. How does trust come? Over time. There has to be some longevity. And when I say, what are you bringing to the table? You can't come in here eating steak and filet mignon and then tell me you got these snacks here for me to. Me and my community getting this. So, well, why you got steak and filet mignon? Why we can't eat steak and filet mignon? What you giving me this for? So we need to share resources. So, and I say that because Sea Grant, I've worked with Sea Grant for over 20-some years. They owe me a lot of money because it's been free work. But when Sea Grant got certain proposals from academics and said they want to give X amount of dollars directly to Gullah Geechees, those didn't get permitted. Those grants got thrown away. But when they wrote the grant and said, well, I'm an academic at this college and I want to get paid for the summer and I'm going to study the Gullah Geechees, they got it. They got the grant. Okay, so it takes the individual now making a moral decision and saying, well, if this is how the system works, maybe I'll get the grant, but I'm going to share the money. So even though they're paying me a salary, I'm still going to pay the community partners out of what they paid me for a salary. And that's a personal decision they can make, because once they pay your salary, you do with it what you want. If you go buy clothes and shoes, you do with it what you want. So you could also choose to pay the community. And I have academics that do that because they finally realized that the system was not for them to share resources with the natives. The system was to further institutions of so-called higher learning and who they were training to behave the way they needed to behave. And that's a lot of who CPAC works with. So it makes it difficult sometimes to even build a relationship when the person comes with the right attitude and everything else because of the structure of the system that they're in already. So unless they're willing to risk a lot to try to alter that structure, a lot doesn't change. And so they have to figure out ways to be creative about resourcing what they want to do. I really was hoping that Britta was going to tell us our section was in there because the word create is on that wall over there. And I really wanted to sit under the word create on this wall back here. You go right around here, you'll see the word create up there. That's where I wanted to sit. But she said, oh, I think other people are going to be in there, so we'll put you over here. Okay? But you have to be creative as well in the relationship. Because one thing that works for her don't work for me. What works for me don't work for her. Like to say, all women ain't alike, all communities are not alike.
But we talk to each other.
But we talk to each other for sure. And be like, girl, leave him alone, girl, he ain't about that. You know, whatever. You're going to have to do this, you know. So definitely, that's the thing. It's having that open dialogue and not being easily offended. Because just because the community is explaining their morals to you, their protocols to you, things you may have never experienced. Just because you've never experienced it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean that, oh, you should be against it. It's not up for debate. That's how that community lives. So you shouldn't be offended by them trying to teach you because you think you're the academic or you're the administrator and you've been doing it so long that you just know everything because you don't know every community in the world. So those are just some of the things that I know we've dealt with and helped to educate a lot of people who want to do research in our community. And if you obtain The Legacy of Evo Landing or We Be Gullah Geechee, those two books, we have a whole section in the back of each one, and We Be Gullah Geechee was an updated one to teach people how to respectfully do research in the Gullah Geechee Nation. And I have found out from a lot of indigenous communities around the world, they loved that part of the book. They said, thank you, Queen Quet, because all we needed to do was erase Gullah Geechee and put our culture's name there. And it works for us too. So they appreciate that someone made a handbook that could go out and help people. And so that We Be Gullah Geechee is all about cultural capital and collaboration. So it helps people to really, as I like to say, understand how to collaborate with not just Gullah Geechees, but a lot of times with other black communities and indigenous communities, especially if they're close. Yeah, go ahead. I know your head about to pop off because I know you had a lot.
No, I wanted to say when you build a relationship with the Gullah Geechee, it really reflects the way we cook.
Yeah.
We cook and simmer and mixing a lot of seasonings in. And as you were describing, getting in the yard, getting on the porch, that's literally reflective of how we cook. You put a little bit in and you taste it.
Yep.
And then you decide, I need to go to the next step, you might add a little bit or take something away. We cook, Gullah Geechee cooking is simmering, and it takes a while for that to happen. And that's how you build relationships with us. So that just, if you watch what we do, we're telling you our story.
Yeah.
But most people, your instant gratification, microwave world, didn't come in and just want to take. And that's literally how our culture in the Americas got started, is that our ancestors were extracted and for the knowledge and their physical labor. So I think if you watch us, the story is there and it's telling you what you need to do, but we live in a capitalistic world that's about extraction and exploitation, even in 2023. So I wanted to say that. And It's so interesting because after the panel, I got a phone call. Well, I read an article and then had to make a phone call. Blue crabs are under stress,
Yeah.
deep stress,
Yeah, absolutely.
and the news broke in the newspaper, and so I had to call the Department of Natural Resources and talk to them. And same thing you're talking about. The issue was, why are we not included in the conversation? We're hearing about it in the newspaper, but we need to be at the table at the beginning. So a lot of folks, you think you're including us at the beginning? No, you're not. You've already made a lot of decisions. By the time you're talking to us, you've made decisions where that needs to change. Because if it doesn't change, if you don't include the indigenous people, and the Gullah Geechee are the indigenous people of this area on the coast, it's all for naught. And yesterday, one of the gentlemen in the financial panel, which I can't remember the exact title, but they were talking finances and stuff, and he was saying it was his job to make sure if we're going to meet net zero, it's really net zero. It will never be net zero if you don't include the indigenous people. Everything else can be 100%, but if you don't come to the people, you will never be net zero. It's just not going to be. And I think historically it has been that way. And it's been done incorrectly because that's why we're in the situation we're in now. So I think that has to change when you're building relationships with us, when you're doing any type of projects. Blue carbon is one reason I wanted to get involved with that community, is that, okay, we already know a lot of what you're doing today.
Right.
You just use different terminology. So I had to come and learn our terminology. So I can go back and say, terminology, y'all.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing I'm already doing, but we need to know terminology so we can have a conversation.
Right.
And what you need to know is you need to come, when you have the idea is when you need to come to the community. As Queen Quet said, we don't need to be down the road, we need to be at the table.
Right.
And that historically has not happened for many reasons, but what we're seeing now is the end result of hundreds of years of not including us at the beginning in exploitation and extraction.
Right.
And it just needs to change. That's the bottom line. It simply needs to change. And as the chamber, I've made the decision that the chamber is an organization that sits at the table or in spaces where we tell folks, when you come to our community, you need to come bring some checks. And not necessarily for the chamber, but for the individuals who are the subject matter experts that you need to pay. So that needs to end. And that also takes teaching our folks that you can ask for money.
Right.
Because we have a traumatic relationship with money, because just as you can inherit generational wealth, you can inherit generational trauma. That's what we're doing. And I talk to individuals and said, let the chamber be the organization that throws the rock, if you will. Because people don't like rocks thrown at them. What are you going to do? You're going to go seek the person that you can work with. All right? So the chamber will be that organization. It's hard to argue with the organization and be an organization there. So the chamber is an organization that says you need to come in and you need to bring checks, you need to do stockings, fees, whatever you want to call it in these grants.
Yeah.
And then you need to come and bring our subject matter experts from the community to the table, and y'all need to start some contracts. And y'all talk about that too.
Yeah.
That we need to stop bad contracts. Well, we know that. Y'all just had to come here and learn.
Right.
We already knew that.
I think another thing too, before you move on to a different topic,
No, please. Go ahead.
is how you come to us. What is your intention?
That's it.
Because we're very intuitive people, very spiritual people. So if you come and there's not a spirit of humility and deference, I don't mean as in bowing down or anything like that, but just a mutual respect
Yes.
for the fact that you are coming into a space where you are ignorant. And we can read that immediately. If you come in with something else that is an air of arrogance, maybe you don't see it that way, but we'll sense it. And we'll say, nice to meet you, and go there.
We have Southern hospitality, so people be very hospitable. But
The
soon
road
as
that helps people.
do it, they would varieties of people.
And
get in
silence
touch.
is an answer too.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for those responses. I really appreciate it. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Do you ever feel, because there is so much focus from the federal government to work with communities, do you feel taxed? When researchers approach you, how do they know whom to approach? Is there one person or a community of people that are representatives, and then how do you ensure that the same person is not being taxed over and over again by every research group that comes to you?
I am taxed. I have been for
We've
years,
had
and I'm gonna start charging tax for this as well. But yes, so definitely, because I'm the head of state for the Gullah Geechee Nation, I'm also the founder of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition. And the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition is the oldest organization in the world with the term Gullah Geechee in the name. So we started off this whole process of kind of vetting researchers. And we had to learn the hard way, who to let in, who not to let in, how to make sure the community knows when it's somebody who shouldn't let in, all of those kinds of things. So it can be taxing, but it's valuable to the community. So even when you go, oh, here we go, another email, like this time of year is when we get inundated because all the grad students are out for the summer. So now they just want to run somewhere, and our area happens to be picturesque and exotic. So maybe I'll go there and do research. Well, maybe we don't have time to babysit you while you really want to hang out at the beach. Okay, so again, we start asking questions right off top. Are you coming here with a grant? Okay. And you want what? If you want to ask questions in a focus group, we need to see those questions. There's a whole variety of things we go through. So the people who usually will go through the process, those are ones that generally are kind of trustworthy. The ones who all of a sudden, like I say, get offended, they weren't really coming for that in the first place. They weren't really coming to work with us. They were trying to simply get their tenure or get their DR in front of their name, PhD behind them, whatever. They had no regard for the community, and our community just seemed exotic enough without them having to have a passport. So a lot of times we end up fleshing them right on out and flushing them off the sea so that we don't have to see them. Now we have an occasional one that comes in, like she said, with the arrogance that they swear they're coming to help us, and then we got to be like, okay, let me help you understand something. And so it's been an interesting process. So with the government, like you said, that's a whole different thing. Because I'm talking first about just the academics. Now when the government people come, that's different. Because they already feel like we have our scientists and we have this agency and that agency or this division of our particular part of the government alphabet soup that already did these statistical analyses on your area. So therefore y'all need this. Because see, we already have an agenda. We already have an action plan that we must carry out for the current administration. So we're going to need to be in your community. So I said, oh, so this is a government occupation now. And then when I say that, then they go, we didn't mean it like that. I said, that's what you sound like. I said, you sound like you just going to come in here and do what you want. I don't think you're going to do that, right? Then it's like, oh, we didn't mean it that way. Well, then let's start over. So then we have to retrain them again in our protocols. So this has been very effective. I have hosted the government alphabet soup, and it's so funny because a reporter just wrote to me yesterday and said, Queen Quet, I am just amazed that the Gullah Geechee Nation has found a way to work with the Department of Defense. Wow! And y'all have found something in common. I said, you're saying wow, what do you think I'm saying? Right? And I just sent him back a smile emoji behind that, and we went on from there. And he's an environmental reporter who's done reports on sea level rise and other things happening in the Gullah Geechee Nation, but he's amazed that this group called SURPASS is working with us now. And now the word is going around from the EPA to the DOD to DOE to DOI to, USDA, that wait a minute, they're all working with the Gullah Geechee Nation. They're working with all these different groups they have there and organizations. I said, right, because we're a nation. So every other nation has nonprofits and NGOs and other organizations. All you have to do is come in. My office can tell you, okay, for this, we need you to go over here. We will make the connection for you. We will make the introduction. And now, this might be something the chamber might be working on. We might say, oh no, this is where our trust needs to work on it. So we're going to make the introductions, we're going to talk with you, but now work with our trust. Here, our angel network, you may need to work with our angel network. So we know what we have, but until you talk with us, you wouldn't know. Like she said, you come in ignorant. How would you know what we have in our house? We got this table, you don't know, we got hidden drawers under there. We got hidden drawers under there, little compartments. There might be good stuff in there, but you wouldn't know, we would. But you gotta have the dialogue. So it hasn't been taxing for me in that regard. It has been a blessing to me because I'm also a historian. And so when I sat on St. Helena Island, and I'm the one invited the people there, but they were telling folks they couldn't travel. This was at the tail end of the height of COVID, as I call it. And when I sat there, and I looked around, and in my head, they're talking, but I'm saying to myself, okay, wait a minute. USDA, DOI, so on, so on, so on, so on. In my head, I'm adding up the agencies in the room. And I had an HBCU that was visiting me. Before they went to leave, they said, Queen Quet, we have to leave, but we must say, we thank you for letting the students witness this. Because to see a black community where the government agencies come to you as a leader and talk to you and have respect enough to be listening to what you say needs to be done, that's amazing. And we're happy to have witnessed it, and we want to be part of it. And so that's what makes the difference, is setting precedents. When we got the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Act passed, people didn't tell me while I was running around here trying to get it passed that they thought I was crazy. They told me after it passed, it got signed into law, that they actually had thought I had lost my complete mind, that the U.S. Congress was going to recognize Gullah Geechee people. I said, that's so nice to know what y'all thought about me behind my back. Okay? And they said, we really did, because we never thought they would do any such thing. I said, no wonder you didn't support the effort. Now what you going to do? So now people who are not Gullah Geechee want to be Gullah Geechee. That's another time. So when you say who should they talk to, they shouldn't go Googling people or watching Instagram or TikTok and figure because somebody says they're of that particular ethnic group that they really are. Because that doesn't mean they are. It's just trending right now. Because I lived long enough to remember when black people were saying they were Cherokee and they weren't African. Okay? So that is an issue always. So do due diligence. This is supposed to be a law symposium. Do some due diligence. You can't think that a 5-minute Google search is due diligence.
Well, and you have to be willing to approach the community, as I said before, with humility and respect. In my community, if anyone comes in and says, we want to speak to the Gullah Geechees, most likely they're going to say, oh, you need to talk to Glenda. Because it's been 20 years, and it took them that long to begin to self-identify in Florida, Northeast Florida with Gullah Geechee, and they will navigate them to me. In other communities, there are other people that they may get navigated to, and the proof of whether they are going to get the outcome that they're seeking is going to be in that engagement. So if they hear things that sound a certain way, but then the product is something else, then that's not the right place to go. I wanted to hear your question.
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
A lot of
But first,
I can only imagine because you're an island girl.
I just want to say just how I don't have a word to say.
That's all right. We understand it.
But Glenda, you said one thing. You said when you were describing the changes in Florida, you said to save the environment, we have to save us.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to hear a little bit more what you mean by that. And then I wanted to just respond about some of what I'm hearing from your heart, talking about not being the decisions or many projects or efforts that have gone on that haven't fully recognized your place and your status and your nation and all of that. But to share that I think that things are changing in that respect. You've already identified some of the ways it's changing from the efforts that you're involved in and helping to educate and make people aware of what is the engagement process that you would like to see, that honors your culture, that honors your involvement. And I think that some of these organizations might not be doing it well yet, but I think that there is a spirit of, I can speak for my organization, of wanting to be, I was in Marilyn's panel, wanting to be intentional in coming, and that's a true heart place. That's not like a project thing.
Right.
That is like, we want to hear and honor and listen and learn and truly engage, not just a word, but truly do that.
Right.
So that is why I want to hear Glenda's answer to the question of, if you want to say the environment, you have to say this, what that looks like for you.
Well, very quickly I can answer it in that if you go to our community compounds, our family compounds, our communities that are still intact, you don't see condos, you won't see structures that shouldn't be in the marsh, you won't see excess, you won't see extremes, you see trees, you see nature intact. So when you save us by allowing us, helping us to stay on our land, I'm talking most specifically about property taxes and the fact that it is very hard when you get a higher standard of living all around you to maintain your modest standard of living and hold on to your land. So when we get assistance in maintaining our land, then you will have the environment that it is that you're trying to keep. Very quickly, on my way here, I was delayed because I was helping a family find a solution for the fact that 4 parcels of their family land was going to sale. I had to find an attorney and ask him, is there anything we can do? The clock is ticking. He gave me a solution, and we were able to put that solution in place. Well, we don't have ready access to attorneys who are willing to help us in Florida. You're going to help people save their property when you can put a shopping mall there? There's no one going to school to do that kind of law. So if environmental attorneys and anyone who advocates legally on your behalf can then cross over the line and help us, then you can kill 2 birds with one crumb. Thank you for the question.
I'm gonna add to that too. We are an authentic organic community culture. So you're not gonna see plastic coming out of us. We may be forced to use it for the grocery store, but a lot of us grew up not even going to grocery stores. And people don't realize that. I had a conversation last week because we were filming on the coast for the seafood trail. It was some of the folks never went into a grocery store until you were in their 20s or 30s, because you literally just walked into your backyard and went into the wetlands and stuff and got what you needed. You know, I didn't know, or it grew on the trees. My grandmother's yard, fig trees, pear trees, apple trees, pecan trees. I didn't know figs were considered going in food until like my 20s, that you went into the grocery store and got figs, because they were so plentiful on persimmons. I did not know persimmons were so expensive, because literally that's where we live. And you never got seafood from the seafood market unless you owned the seafood market and you sold to the council. Yeah, you didn't sell it to you, sell it to us, because we literally would go into the marsh. So when we're talking blue carbon, we are literally we lived it. But the experience that's happening now is losing the marshes, and we've been doing that for about 40 years now. We've lived the impact of the bridges being built, developers coming in. That's literally what is happening. That did not happen before the bridges were built. Once those bridges were built and the developers, 3 things, I said that 3 things. Bridges being built, mosquito control, and air conditioning.
That's right.
Anglo-Saxon Europeans, whatever did not live on the coast because of disease, malaria. We're not going to get air conditioning. It was too hot, and they had no access because there were no bridges. Once that happened, those 3 things working together, then it opened it up. Literally, the problem is people are building very much. Should be building. That's it. That's the problem. It's not that complicated, you know. So that you're now putting things that were not meant to be and natural, because that's what plastic is. There's nothing good about any kind of plastic.
Right.
Plastic industry knows that. They invented the recycling industry because they knew plastic was not natural. So we are an authentic, organic culture that was built out of the worst of circumstances, the peculiar institution of slavery. That abundance has been handed down to us. Cash poor, yes, but the abundance is the culture.
Yes.
The asset is the culture.
Yeah.
That's the Gullah Secret Trail. A good example, a couple of things that you said. Probably 85% to 90% of the funds for the Gullah Secret Trail is spent in our community. And that's very unusual. And then there was another point that you made, the Secret Trail. I can't remember what it will come to me. But the bottom line for our culture and why our culture, if you save us, you save everybody else, is because we are authentic, we're organic. That's who we are. That's why our ancestors were brought here. Because of their knowledge of how to control the water and manage the land to grow the indigo, rice, and everything else. That all happens before what we usually think about the plantations, cotton, tobacco. But before all that, we had rice and indigo. And that's literally who we are. So if you say it's the authentic, organic culture, you're saving yourself.
You say the planet. Exactly. You say the planet.
And that could be said for almost any indigenous culture. And that's why we're all related. That's why I've started to say you gotta get your indigenous culture of this
Of the
culture.
coast. Yeah. I've been saying that for years. That's why we go to the Indigenous Peoples Forum and the minority forums at the UN. And I know it's time for this forum to end, but what I want to do is I want to give y'all some scientific information at Gullah Geechee on Twitter and Instagram. All right? At Gullah Geechee Nation on TikTok. QueenQuet.com is my website, as well as you can go to GullahGeecheeNation.com. And if you want to partner with us, collaborate with us, do some of this co-production that we're talking about, you can go to GullahGeecheeLand.com. And Geechee is Geechee. Ain't there no I in Geechee if it a we. Okay?
If you see the I, it's not us.
It's not us, okay? So GullahGeecheeLand.com. You'll see that you can become a member of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, or you can sign up where we have a whole volunteer section so that people who want to do scientific work with us, bring their expertise to us, other things, you can sign up there as well, and you can also contribute to our Gullah Geechee Land and Legacy Fund. You want to give out any contact info?
Just Gullah Geechee Cultural Community Trust. I would give you the ad, but I don't want to put something in there that's not in there. So.
Yeah, that's new.
Right, it's new. Gullah Geechee Cultural Community Trust.
Yeah, but the website is just Gullah Geechee.
Yeah, the website is gullahcommunitytrust.org.
And you can Google Gullah Geechee Chamber, it will come up.
It'll come right up there.
I know you've been talking about this
Yeah,
all
Google.
day, but you can Google me, Gullah Geechee Chamber, and the website is GullahGeecheeChamber.org and GullahGeecheeFoundation.org is the 501c.
And we're all on LinkedIn, so if you look up Queen Quet, I do believe I'm still the only Queen Quet on there. But yes, and you'll see Queen Quet, Marquetta L. Goodwine, my whole name on there. So yeah, please follow on LinkedIn and let's connect and stay connected so that the next time, hopefully, you will be on the shoreline where we are, where we can truly look at this. And I hope that all that we've shared and said here in the circle truly does sink in, and that makes a difference in how you value things as we continue to talk about blue carbon and how we structure the laws that go forward so that they are equitable and that we have some equality, because equity and equality are not the same thing in definition. Google that. All right. So y'all have a great day. Thank y'all for coming. We appreciate you. Peace and blessings.